Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Oh, gosh. Type into the chat where you are tuning in from. You know how I like to roll. Type in like where you're from and what grade level you represent. That always is super, super helpful. So it's good to be back. If you're just joining us, and if you're new to the family, welcome, welcome. For those of you who are returning, I have been out for the last 2 weeks in North Carolina, and I'm actually still traveling. I'm in Ohio, but I was visiting some former students who are at Duke and at UNC Chapel Hill and at NC State, and also visiting some of my private families who live in Asheville. So it feels good to be back and good to be talking to you and sharing lots of different things. So welcome, welcome. So hi, Sylvia, 9th grade, fantastic. Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, great. All right, so type into the chat where you're tuning in from and what grade level you represent. Hi, Rachel. New York City, woman after my own heart. Rachel, you should know that I went to Teachers College at Columbia for graduate school. And my best friend from graduate school, who I've known for, wow, I think it's been 30 years now. She's who I come to visit in Ohio. This is where I wrote my book, and this is where I come to get rejuvenated. So I'm here just for a couple more days. But New York City, it's a place to be. Okay, anyone else want to share with me where you're tuning in from and what grade level you represent? While we wait just maybe another minute. Just so you know, I go live every Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesdays are at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And on Thursday, we do 4 p.m., which is 7 p.m. Eastern time. And each week, we alternate the formal presentation and the informal presentation. So yesterday we did the 4 questions every admission officer asks before deciding who to admit or deny. And that formal presentation sort of repeats every week, and we alternate. So next week it'll be on Thursday. The opposite day, so that's today, for better or for worse, you guys, you have me on today, which is the informal presentation. So I like to just pick a topic that just because I like to talk about all of these things, and there's so many things you need to know. So today we're talking about the 4 predictions that I have for the upcoming season, which I can't believe it's here, for college admissions. Okay, so cool. I hope you're okay with me. So on these days, there's no PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever. Literally, I have either usually a whiteboard, or today, since I'm not in my own studio, I have notes that I took earlier today. Okay, so I'm just going to go through these, and this is a really great time, more than anything, for you to be able to ask questions that are heavy on your mind, either on literally the topic at hand. Let me just make sure that my phone is on Do Not Disturb. Yeah. So sound good? Okay. Anyone else? Where you're tuning in from and what grade level? All right. Go ahead and you can type it in anytime you feel comfortable. So welcome everyone. Before I launch in, you might be thinking like, well, who are you? So just so you know, I'm Dr. Cynthia Cologne, and I am the author of the book, Be Committed, Get Admitted, and also the host of the podcast Destination U, YOU University. So all the things you can find online. These are the podcast, the YouTube channel, lots of free information that you can have just that is out there. So that is who I am. My background is, I grew up, I was a daughter of an immigrant mother. She herself, I interviewed her. She was my first podcast. So if you go way back and listen to the very first podcast, it's my interview with my mom. And she tells the story of how she got admitted to 2 colleges, and she came, running into the house to share her excitement. And her mom just kind of said in Spanish, like, why are you so excited? You're just going to get married and have a bunch of kids. And so that self-fulfilling prophecy sort of never left her. And she, in fact, I think dabbled in community college for a hot minute. But she swore that would never happen to her children. So I was the firstborn, and she talks in the podcast how she replaces the word if with the word when. So it was never if you're going to college, but it was always when you're going to college in my household anyway. But when it came time to apply to college, I was paralyzed. I had dreamt of going to USC, University of Southern California, for years. And I talked about it all the time. I watched college football, and she knew this, but as a senior, I just became paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to ask. I was, had imposter syndrome, all the things that even your rock star children, like they might be like, oh yeah, I got this. And like secretly, they're just like dying inside. So my mom, even then, just had the courage. She was like, I don't know how to help you. So she got help from someone who she had met when I was a sophomore. She held onto that business card, and the rest is really history. So I really believe that it's because of what my mom and Mr. Raul Vargas did for me in that moment of like lifting me up and saying, okay, I got you. And then sort of getting me to the finish line. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Anyway, there's much more, but like I said, I've done, I did the book and I did the TED Talk. So lots of places you can find me if you're curious to know my background. Okay. So most of the things I learned at Vassar College, which is where I did my admissions stint, meaning the college admission part. And then when I left Vassar College, I became the director of college counseling at Marymount High School, a private girls' school in Los Angeles. Okay. All that to say, I've been in this business for a long time. So without further ado, here's what I'm going to share with you. I have 4 predictions as to what is coming. Now, why? So maybe it helps if I share with you, a little bit about what happened this year, and you may know some of it. For me, the biggest thing that happened that changed this year is that it used to be just before this year, literally last season, there were only 5 colleges that received over 100,000 applications. Okay. And all 5 of those colleges are in California. The University of California system has 5 colleges that receive over 100,000. UCLA, Berkeley, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, and UC Irvine, those 5. And this year, we've seen a number of flagship public schools and private schools. Northeastern hit that 100K, UT hit that 100K, I want to say UNC. So there's a few more going over to the dark side. Okay. So now we have this like influx of applications. I say this because you might be thinking, oh, like that makes sense. But it doesn't make sense because we're actually graduating. We're starting to graduate fewer students. There are actually fewer students that were born 18 years ago. So in theory, we should be having fewer applications, but instead we're having more. However, those more only come at the really, at the competitive schools. Okay. So you'll hear me weave some of this stuff in. I also predict that with this season, I think there's going to be a lot of waitlist movement because of all of the new shifts that have happened. So, but we're not talking about this season because your kids are not in this season, but I wanted to give you some context as to sort of how I started to think through this process. How this season was going to affect next season. Good? Have I just blown your mind already? You're like, oh my gosh, this woman is talking a mile a minute. What is going on? So, hi, Jamie. I've been to Louisville. Yeah. Churchill Downs. Hey. Okay. So let me share with you the 4 predictions. Okay. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I say them out loud. I'm like, oh, these are not earth shattering, but maybe to you they are. The first prediction I have is that we're going to continue to see these flagship public institutions gain a lot of steam and continue to get more and more popular. So honestly, before it was like University of Michigan was like, and then UNC, we have sort of like what we call the public Ivies. But UT Austin has made a run for their money. UVA was another public Ivy. It still is. But Madison was, University of Wisconsin at Madison, I think is going to be right in there. Ohio State is already in there. One of my personal favorites, and I'm going to visit tomorrow, is Indiana University. I'm meeting some private clients there, and I also have a student there. People love IU. And my ex-husband went to IU, and I remember going to visit. He wanted to show me his campus. It's beautiful. So I'm going to just go tomorrow to make sure that it's still as beautiful as I remember it. But I really think that these flagship public schools will continue to rise. We're going to see more of them. So like we already have the Georgia schools, Georgia Tech, and also the Florida schools. I already mentioned UNC. I mentioned UT, and Of course, Michigan was already, but then the University of Wisconsin. So kind of look for those to be sort of the next wave. But also Ohio State and Indiana University, I think they're sort of right behind that. Okay. So thinking about that, and also really thinking about, like, what does this mean for you? So you know how I like to roll. Like, I'm going to tell you something and I'm going to say, what is the strategy for that? So the strategy for that is what we teach in our programs is you have to look not just at the admission rate, acceptance rate for any institution, especially a flagship public. You have to dig deeper. And we use the reports. When we talk about acceptance rates with our students, we're talking about what is reported directly from the college. So we use the reports that come directly from the college, which is not what you find on collegeboard.com or that you Google. So I'll give you an example. University of Michigan for a long time has been about 50% out of state and 50% in state. Okay. That's very different from UT Austin, which claims and just states out loud they only do 10% out of state. Okay. When I went to visit University of Wisconsin at Madison many years ago, they back then were saying they were on a mission to get 25% of their student body to be out of state. Why? Again, this is a business, and so it helps the budget when they can have set a percentage of students that are from out of state and going to pay out of state tuition. Okay, this makes sense. So how you use this to your advantage is you have to really look by school. What is the percentage of out of state students? Okay, I mean, unless it's your home state. Okay, because the acceptance rate for out of state students typically is much lower than the overall acceptance rate. Okay, I got you. No worries. Okay, so that's tip number one, or prediction number one. Prediction number two is because of my prediction number one, where we're going to see more flagship schools, start to rise in applications. I do think the next wave of popularity or, hard to get into are going to be your local private schools. Again, this makes sense, duh. But, we already see popularity for TCU, SMU, if you're in Texas. If you're in California, it might look like Chapman University or LMU, Loyola Marymount University, or Santa Clara, schools like that, where, for students, many families are trying to find places that feel good, feel safe, feel like the appropriate size, lots of things you're looking for. But these smaller universities, different than liberal arts colleges, by the way, can really add to the mix. And I believe in all of those schools I just mentioned. I love them all for different reasons. I'm trying to think of some others. Colleges that change lives is a go-to place for me. Colleges that change lives, you can look on their website. It's a group of schools that are by and large unknown, like by popular name, but they're really great in terms of what they deliver. Places like, I would say Davidson, but it's already super competitive. A place like Davidson and Colgate and all those. There are some smaller colleges or medium size that are also Division I. I think Davidson is one of them. So I'm just giving you that as an example. Okay, so you can have that sort of collegiate rah-rah experience, but on a smaller campus, different than the flagship. Okay, so prediction number one, flagships. Public flagship institutions are going to continue to be on the rise, and it's going to leave some room for some other flagship institutions to also be on the rise. Prediction number two, it will mean that the local private schools will also be a good alternative for many students to apply to. Okay. Prediction number three, and you might see the writing on the wall for this one, is testing. So if you recall, during the pandemic, almost every college, not every college, but nearly every college, moved to the direction of test optional. Okay. And then the University of California, remember I'm based in California, so a lot of things I talk about also include California specifics. So the University of California system and the California state system went to a place where they went test blind. So they don't accept, even if you submit the test scores to the California public system, they will not review them in terms of the review of your application. Okay, so that's test blind. Most schools went test optional. which means you have the option of taking or submitting your exams scores to be reviewed in your application process. What that meant in reality was that only the students who had top scores were submitting them. So there's a little bit of an inflation of the test score average from each school. Okay, so does that make sense? I don't think I'm saying it correctly. Every college that is test optional has applicants who submit their test scores and some that do not, and they accept in the admitted pool. They're all mixed in together, right? So at the end of that, when they report who they admitted, they're reporting all of those students, and they're reporting the average test scores of those who submitted test scores. Okay, so you can see how it'd be a little bit inflated, because probably if you didn't submit test scores, either you didn't take the test at all, or you took the test and decided it wasn't going to add value to your application. Okay, so we're already seeing there were less than 20 schools that had mandatory required testing in this season, and we're inching. I should have checked. Oh, my apologies. I should have checked right before. We're already inching. I believe it was at 20 or not more, and with a number of IBs as well. So if you are a freshman, and I know there's at least one freshman here, if you're a freshman, sophomore, it's very possible that the pendulum will swing even more by that time. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're a junior, chances of them making something mandatory required now, this late in, letting you know, chances are really slim. Technically, we're not yet into the fiscal year of the July 1 starts the new year or the new season. So they could make a change, but it's unlikely in my opinion. Okay. So those of you who are class of 27, 28, and then beyond 29, 30, and the testing is coming back. And for the California system, I don't think testing will ever come back. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, because I actually believe in the testing. I can go into that, but it's the grades. You're like, what? I can't believe she said that. Yeah. Yeah. When I talk to parents or students about their GPA, like they all have above a 4.0. So there's huge grade inflation. And if you can imagine every teacher in America, they don't grade the same. So there's nothing to compare apples to apples, whereas at least the testing is like sort of apples to apples. Again, don't get me wrong. If you've watched my TED Talk, I'm a firm believer that there's a discrepancy of resources between public and private school students, but admission officers are trained to understand those nuances and the context in which you come from. So I do believe in testing, and I believe it will come back for a lot of places. Okay. It's not going to come back right away. So if you're class of 26, you're probably okay. Okay. My fourth prediction is that you may not know this, but colleges close like every month. There are colleges closing all the time, and this sort of loops back to where I started from, which is for those, the population is going down. Again, the number of babies born like in 2008 and when the crash happened, it's just the number's down. So there are a number of colleges that cannot sustain. There are a number of, I was even talking to my best friend here. We talk all things, college and education. And we were talking about Penn State, to use that as an example. There are a number of schools that have satellite campuses that all of those campuses can't sustain. So there'll be a number of colleges that continue to close over time. You might not even realize it or notice it, because they certainly don't make the top of the news. But that will continue to happen. So everybody is getting pushed, everybody's getting pushed into the colleges, obviously, that stay open. Now, again, to circle back, top 300 colleges, which admit about 50%, less than 50% of their applicant pool, top 100, and I think that list is maybe about 120 now. About 100 to 120 schools are admitting under 30% of their applicant pool. And then I would say the top 50 and top 50, maybe they're at under 20. And then we have the Ivy level institutions that are all at under 10%. Okay. So nothing's going to happen to those schools anytime soon. They're all going to remain open, at least for now. There's a lot of things that are going on in the higher education realm that is changing the landscape even every day. But those are my big predictions and how it, will shape next year. Again, to give you something like, what do I do about that? Just keep in mind for my point about colleges closing, just first of all, keep in mind there's still nearly 3,000 colleges. Let's start there. Everybody's going to get admitted to college. So be mindful of that. And also just, I always talk about making sure you're finding the right fit. So even among the top 300 colleges, you can't be a fit for all of those, right? So be sure that you're doing your homework, you're doing your due diligence. And when it comes to that essay that asks you to describe why this college, is usually a short supplemental essay that asks you, why are you applying to our school? That's a serious question. And being able to answer that authentically and specifically, specific to you and specific to that college, means a lot to that college. So answering a generic answer is just never going to get you to stand out. So there you go, guys. That's really what I wanted to share with you. And so now I just want to open it up to any questions that you have, because it's your time. So tell me what I can answer for you, or what you're thinking about, or what I've sort of made you think about while we were here. Hi, everyone. Tell me where you're from and what grade level you are if you're just joining us. I told you I just got back from this retreat. I was in North Carolina. Part of being in North Carolina was to go visit my students and my families, but I was there for an entrepreneurial women's retreat. And so there are these stickers that we got to put, and it says, "You become what you believe." I picked all these stickers. Of course, there was a whole table full. I love this one that says, I really wish you were here with me. I really wish you were here with me. All that glitters is not gold. I love that. Though she be but little, she is fierce. You can't tell, but I'm like 5 foot on a good day, you guys. That's the truth. Okay, tell me what your questions are. Hi, I see a couple more people joined. So if you're just joining, I'm going to do a quick recap so you can like tattoo it to your brain or write down these things. And please ask questions. You guys, I'm an open book. If this is the first time you're joining me, and welcome to the family, first of all. Yay, so glad you found us. We hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube today. There's a video on my YouTube channel that is like blown up. Well, to me, it's blown up. It's not 1 million views, but it's only been on there for 4 weeks, and it's at over 15,000 views. So clearly it's hitting a chord. In that video, I talk about the real behind the scenes of how we voted for applications. So yeah, so you may want to catch that. So go ahead and ask your questions in the chat. And for those of you just joined, I'm going to do a quick recap. So hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Cynthia Cologne, and I grew up with an immigrant mother, and she just helped me get admitted to college. She knew it was a dream of mine. It was also a dream of hers to help and see me through to college. And then since then, I've done everything in my mission. My mission in life has been to help as many people as I can get the information that you need to be successful and change the trajectory of your life, because college certainly changed the trajectory of my life. So every Wednesday and Thursday I go live, and one of the days is informal and one of the days is formal. So today is my informal day where I get to talk about what I want, and my team doesn't bother me about it. Like, okay, you do you. So the 4 predictions I have for this coming admission season, they're just 4, and they're quick 4. So just to recap, the first one is there are public flagship institutions are going to continue to grow in applications. We saw that happen this year with UT Austin, UNC Chapel Hill, and Ohio State, and a number of other schools. And compounding on top of the fact that University of Michigan and UNC Chapel Hill had already seen so many applications. So that's going to leave room for some other growth for other places, including University of Wisconsin, Ohio State, I just mentioned, and also Indiana University and other places like that. But we saw the Florida schools grow. I mean, just everywhere seems to be getting harder and harder, the Georgia schools. So look for that and start to find your own niche or your own place. Tomorrow I'm going to visit Bloomington. I'm going to heading there to visit some VIP clients and a student there. Prediction number 2 is that leaves room also for local private colleges to start to become more popular. So, and if you're in Texas, those are your TCUs, your SMUs. If you're in California, it's Chapman, Santa Clara, LMU, things like that. Okay, places like that. And those are some of my favorites. I don't know. I went to USC as an undergrad, but I worked at Vassar, as I mentioned earlier, and I get it. I get the small to medium sized school and the community that brings. I mean, I loved my time at Vassar, even though I wasn't a student there. So I definitely get the small, medium sized school. Third prediction is the testing. We're definitely going to swing back. The pendulum is already going back. So if you're a class of 27, sophomore, or 28 or beyond, you're going to see more and more colleges are going to require testing. So that's going to change. And then the final one that I just wanted everyone to know is that every month there are colleges, regularly, consistently, there are colleges that are closing because our population cannot sustain the number of colleges that we have. There are a number of colleges that just don't have the enrollment to sustain, just keeping the lights on. So be mindful of that, and also just be mindful of like what makes sense for you. So I'm guessing that if you're on this call, you found us because your child is looking at minimum of a top 300 college, but most of the students and families who find us are looking to get admitted to a top 100 college. So we serve everybody, no matter what high school or demographic, what zip code you're from or what high school you go to. But we tend to attract public school students and Catholic school students, probably because I was a Catholic school principal. I am a product of a public school. But we do have our share of private school students as well. Okay, questions. You guys. Happy to answer anything. Go ahead and type it in. I'll wait a few minutes. Otherwise, if you don't have questions, I'm happy to let you go. It'll be short today, which is fine. Or you can do this. Type into the chat one thing you heard me say that you're like, oh, that was helpful. Okay. Engineering programs, top choices would be Northwestern. Yay, in Michigan. She's excellent. What is more? I hear a lot about your applicant telling the story, casting yourself as a character in the class. Yes. Okay, Jamie. So let's see if we can unpack this. So I'm going to show you two things. Okay, I think this will be helpful. So let's do this. I just went over this, and I think it's worth doing. So let's do it. Let's just do it. Okay. Jamie asked a really great question, and so I'm going to share my screen and offer everybody how we work with students, or what we find really useful and helpful, how we approach this process. So I'm going to start with this. So what most people talk about and what you hear a lot about is the passion project, right? Oh, everybody needs a passion project. And when I did my homework and I was like, what is a passion project? Well, what a passion project is for everybody else is what we call our level 3 coolness factor or coolness project. Okay. So that is level 3, but I have found that there's not a single person that I know that I've ever worked with that has been admitted to an Ivy League or Ivy level institution without being a level 4 or above. Okay, so let me break this down really briefly. But level 1 is everybody's involved in something, so that's level 1. 95% of the pool is that. Level 2 is your selected or elected leaders. Level 3 is going to be about 10% of the applicant pool. So this is everything that you do, that your child does, that they would do even if nobody paid them, even if nobody gave them a grade. Okay. Again, a lot of people talk about passion projects, and this is where I would categorize a passion project as level 3. Again, it's about 10% of the applicant pool. Don't get me wrong. Plenty of students get admitted to top colleges with a level 3, meaning, there's, level top 300, top 100. I would, but really, if you're getting into top 50 or below, it's level 4 and above. So the difference here with level 4 is this. Write this down. We borrow from the Girl Scout Gold Award. So if you're familiar with that, this will make sense. But I had been working with a number of Girl Scout Gold Award leaders, and I was like, only 5% of the Girl Scouts who are eligible even complete it. So I'm like, this is it. So here's the criteria for the Gold Award, are three components. 1, you must solve a problem. 2, for a community you are passionate about. And 3, spend 80 hours or more. Okay. So that's the difference between a passion project, which someone is just doing because they love it, and it's self-fulfilling and it's self-improvement and all those things. But an impact project is leaving an impact on a community that solves a problem, and you spend 80 hours or more. Okay, so that's the difference. And then intellectual curiosity, those are for if you're serious about Ivy League, then that's what we work with our students to get to level 4 and 5. Okay, so this is just a quick preview. I go over this in depth in the formal presentation. These are the signature core 4 essays. So what most people do is spend 70 to 80% of their time focused on the one essay, the one personal statement. Like, I have to have this amazing personal statement. That's not wrong. It's just not the whole picture. And so if you're like me, holler, if you're Gen X, applied to college many years ago, we needed one essay. I don't know about you, but I wrote one essay, and I don't even remember if Common App existed, but it was the one essay, that was it. Now, parents, are you sitting down? This always blows everybody away. Now you need one essay for the Common Application as the personal statement. Okay. And for every college you apply to, each additional college you apply to, each college is going to ask for an additional 2 to 7 additional supplemental essays. Yeah. And if you're in California or applying to California schools, the University of California system, they require 4 essays. Okay. So at minimum, Common App plus your UC application, that's already 5. And if you apply to 5 colleges, that can be anywhere from 10 to like 28 essays. Okay. And it goes on beyond that. I have a video on YouTube that's called like 68 essays. Oh, yeah. So we teach this, and we also teach students how to recycle, retweak, repurpose, because not only are you going to need like all those essays, we teach you how to use these essays because you need a 50-word version. You need a 150-word version. You need a 350-word version. It can make your head explode. Okay. This here is what I'm going to remember. Jamie, you're asking like, what will the reader remember? In 6 to 12 minutes, that's all they get to read your application. They're basically going to walk away with like this nugget. That's it. So this, we teach you how to create a strategic and compelling application so that these things are woven throughout the entire application. Okay. And then finally, we use, so what most people do is just Google what the acceptance rate is. And they go look on College Board, or they just look at the school and ask, what's the acceptance rate? And there's lots of nuance to knowing the acceptance rate. And I alluded to one earlier. There's a nuance of like how many male applicants, how many female applicants. There's that nuance. There's the nuance of like how many out-of-state students, how many in-state students. There's the nuance of which majors are most popular and the hardest to get admitted to. And that plays a role. So we really look to set you up for success. Not just like, oh, let's fill out this application and make sure it's a great application. There's so many other parts and pieces to making sure that your son or daughter actually gets the result, the desired result you want. What is the desired result that you want? You want this to be a smooth and happy process, not a nagging and like stressful process. You want this process. Stop share. You want this process. Am I right? Can I get an amen? Preach. You want this process to be a happy and smooth one as possible. You don't want to be the nag. You want to be the cheerleader. So you need someone to help to hold them accountable, and you want them to submit a clear, concise, and compelling application. Those are 3 C's we used to say at Vassar when we would present our to the public. You're looking for a clear, concise, and compelling application. That's it. That's all you're trying to do. And most teenagers just don't know how to do that on their own. So, okay. It was a long answer to your question, but I really hope that helped more than anything. Did that help? Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. I can offer you one more example. Would it be helpful if I gave you an example of a couple of students? Would that be helpful? Type into the chat the number 1 if you want that. And that will maybe be the last thing. I won't keep you guys because you don't seem to have questions. So it's no worries. Or you're like, you know what? I'm just going to go have dinner. Okay. Hi, Louisa. Okay. All right. So let me find what I'm looking for. Okay. So here's the link to, you can get this. So I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to show you what's on the inside of this, but you can go and put in your email address and get this document I'm about to share on the screen with you because it goes into some depth. Okay, so share screen. Yeah, this one. Okay, so if you go to that link, it'll take you here. And this is the PDF that will come. So I walk you through sort of all the components of the application. But at the I always like fear that people download it and then they don't open it, right? I've been guilty of that. I download stuff all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go find that later, and I don't. But this is where the gold is. So here's 5. These are real examples of students that we've worked with, and so it comes down to this. So like, you just look here. Here's, I'm never going to remember her name, never. But I'll say, oh, that girl who educated the teens on drunk driving for the Gold Award comes from a 50-year line of military colonels and plans to become the first female colonel in her family and will join the ROTC. That's literally all I'm going to remember. Okay. So through her essays, Emily is graduating from Harvard this year, but I remember reading her first attempt of her essay, which she had spent hours producing, like probably more than 10 hours. And I told her mom, I said, no. But once we were able to craft her truth and her story, it's about her family, but she weaves in all this like, what is the word I'm looking for? Jargon, like military jargon. She sort of uses the military metaphor throughout. I mean, it's just brilliant. But it matches her whole application. So we really work to see how we can maximize and add value through the essay. Okay, here's Curtis. The DC kid who speaks Mandarin, is skilled in capoeira, interned with Dinosaur George, and said this: there are 5 living African-American paleontologists in the world. I want to be number 6. I mean, who doesn't remember that? I will Well, I keep in touch with my students. As I mentioned earlier, if you were here on the call very beginning, I keep in touch with a lot of them. And so I know Curtis and I stay in touch with him, but there will come a day I will forget Curtis, his name, but I will never forget the day he told me that. And so when he was deferred at Harvard, he applied early action. This is several years ago now. And I said, but did you tell them, like you tell me how you want to be number 6? And he's like, well, not really. And I said, you didn't tell him like that. Go in. And so he did, and he was admitted. We'll never know if that's why he was admitted, but it sure helped. Okay, so that's Curtis. Now let's go to Jana. Let's see who else do we have here. Good. Yep. Okay. So here's Jana. So I have to put my glasses on. The Chicago girl who shares a 1 bathroom for 5, champion debater, started a podcast and wants to study political science on her path to becoming POTUS, as in the real POTUS. Okay. That's what I'm going to remember about Jana. I'm not going to remember her name. I'm going to remember my other favorite essay she wrote was being a microphone hog. When she started the podcast, she didn't know what she was doing. So it's a great essay. She's at Princeton. Here's Charlie, the introverted, awkward Catholic school kid who loves Magic the Gathering, robotics, and coding. He's the founder of Charge Bikes, building custom electric bikes for 3 years and wants to be the next Elon Musk. He's studying mechanical engineering at Notre Dame. Okay. And then here's the last one, I think. Yeah. The girl from a red section of California, liberal blue values, national champion dancer, NFL football lover, and created a 6-part immigration podcast. Plans to become an immigration lawyer and a high-ranking judge. Okay. That's really all we're going to remember. And so how do you craft that story is so, so, so important because, look, there are plenty of colleges. We talked about them today. It's almost 3,000 colleges. So everybody's going to get in somewhere with some effort. But again, families who find us are looking to access the top 100 colleges. And it just takes more effort than that. Because if you take that sliver, you're basically trying to be probably in the top 5% of all. Like every year, there are about almost 4 million students who will graduate from high school, about 4 million seniors. I shouldn't say they're all going to graduate, but about half of them will go on to college, maybe a little bit more than half, but less than half will go on to a 4-year college. So even to use a round number and say 2 million go on to a 4-year college, it's less than 2,000 that get admitted to Harvard, to use that as an example. So that's the extreme. Okay. So I often just can't emphasize enough at this point of the game for juniors who are just 6 months away from applying. I can't emphasize, unless you can just wrap your head around it, it's competitive. It's not like, let me just, my kid has been doing all things right. Your kid has been doing everything right and deserves to have this spot, but everybody else has too. So it's really important that you understand sort of what's at stake, So, and this is not for everybody. I'm not saying that everybody needs to put in all this effort to get admitted to college, but those who really want it will put in the effort. It is what it is. Okay. Okay. Woo. I hope that was helpful. What are the possibilities of a college accepting me? Louis, what kind of question is that? Yeah. You're going to be admitted. I promise you. Okay. Even if you told me you had straight C's, there's a college out there that's going to admit you. I promise you. A 4-year college. I promise you. Okay. So the answer is yes. The answer is you're going to get admitted. The question is where. Okay. And what do you want? Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I don't see any more questions. I don't know if that means I did a good job or not. It's a good job. Give me on a scale of 1 to 10, how helpful was today? Or what's your one takeaway? I'd love to know that feedback. Because like I said, every week I do one informal presentation. So I just like to just give you my real candid thoughts. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how helpful was today? And then I will let you all go. Okay. Yeah, Luis, I would download this PDF. It'll give you all of that. And then next week on Thursday, I go over it in a full presentation. But there are a lot of pieces, a lot of pieces. Okay, you can also go to the YouTube channel, and there's a whole the video that's the most popular right now. It gives you the background as to how they review. Okay. All right, everyone. I hope that was helpful, and thanks for spending time with me. And be sure you, wherever you are, be committed, get admitted, and go make it a happy and sunny day. Okay. Bye, everyone. Yeah.